and I will post it and send a link out so you guys can go back and watch it again later if you want to. But if you're recording kids, you definitely don't want their faces on there, because the second you put them on either EDSB or YouTube or anywhere else, doesn't matter, you've now violated FERPA, and you don't want to do that piece. Your principal, your assistant principal will talk to you about whether or not you can do it in a closed chat where you're not recording it. But again, I would definitely check with your administration about that piece if you want them on there. I do understand, and I have sympathy in that act. One of my good friends is a music teacher. She's had her first grade daughter on, and her daughter got so excited when she saw her friends from class. So I get that fact that the isolation and loneliness is going to be a problem for kids, and you may want to have the videos on, and maybe you turn them on and do a hello greeting, you turn them off, and now they go and they work on their own, and you record what you're doing afterwards. So there's some ideas and things to kind of think about as you plan this out for working with your students, whether they're in kindergarten, whether they're in 5th grade, anywhere in between, that kind of piece. As far as logging in, the district has set something up very easy for you, and I'm going to do a lot of screen shares with you. Now realize I am working on a Mac. Doesn't matter though, the Windows screens are almost identical, and in some instances I'll show you both Mac and Windows screens. So you'll see both of those, okay? So let me share with you first the Clever window where you're going to go to actually log in. And for many of you, this is not something you've used a whole lot. And this is the main Clever login window where you're going to log in as a teacher and log in with Active Directory. And then, of course, you're going to use your Lawson number at hcps.net and your district password to log in. When you do that, it will take you, I got to do teacher, I'm sorry about that. I have multiple logins as a district administrator. This is your dashboard. This is your dashboard for everything Clever related, a lot of district programs you can get into. You can see my days teaching at James last spring are still in here because I had the typing club for my kids, and I had iReady for my kids, and all kinds of stuff in my favorite section. This favorite section here is just where you can put the things you access most often. A little bit further down this page, you've got the e-learning for school closure. And here you can find out, they added pre-K e-learning resources today. That's new, it wasn't there this morning. So they keep adding new stuff in this section, and you want to check back here very often to try and find things the district's putting out for you guys to use with your students. All the way down at the bottom is where you'll find your more apps, and everybody should have Zoom in there now on their Clever dashboard. To get this up at the top, ladies and gentlemen, all you do is click on the heart. It'll favorite it for you, and it shows up back here at the top for you to use. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Zoom, and it should automatically log you into your Zoom account that they have set up for you. You may, if you haven't done this yet, you may get a message asking you to join Troy Suarez's account. I can't tell you how many emails I got from that one. Yes, please do it. Troy Suarez, our supervisor technology, instructional technology, and he is the one who set all this up. So it all goes through him. So you're going to go ahead and say, yes, I'm going to be part of Troy Suarez's account. What that does for you, ladies and gentlemen, is that takes care of this item up here in green. It takes out your 40-minute time limit. It does not change the 100, but it does change the 40-minute time limit. So you get rid of that 40-minute time limit at least through July 31st. Also on this page, you can see this is my district account, so I can put 100 people in a meeting at a time if I wanted to. Like I said, I have an account, a pro account through Florida Southern I'm using because some of my chats coming up later this week have 275 to 300 people in them, and just imagine managing all that fun stuff. So this is your profile page. There are 3 other things I want you to be aware of on this page. The first one is over here on the meetings tab. I'm going to click the meetings tab, and you will see I've got several meetings set up already through my district account. This is the easiest way to set up a meeting with your students, your parents, or both. And all you got to do is click on schedule new meeting. You give your meeting a title. So I'm going to call this My Fake Meeting number 4. It's the 4th time I've done this today. And by the way, you can laugh at me all you want because we all need a good laugh right now. Then you select the date you want it to be at. You select a starting time. Real quick on starting time, it does not have to be exact. Just because it says 4 o'clock does not mean you cannot go in early. I was in our chat at 2:45 and looking at who was on the waiting list to come in. So you can still go in early, and there's a button for that I'll show you in a minute. This is just a calendaring feature so that Zoom knows and it can put a reminder on your calendar that you've got a chat coming up. Duration, same thing. This is not saying that if I only set it for 1 hour, at 1 hour it's going to cut me off. This is just a calendaring piece. I normally set my 1-hour webinars for 2 hours, so it blocks out my calendar. Like I said, I've done this about 10 times already this week, and it's only Tuesday. And the first one, you know, they had questions until almost an hour and a half after we started. The next one, they had questions and we were done in an hour. So I leave it a little bit longer so it blocks off my calendar. I don't do anything with a recurring meeting, but for some of you, especially those of you maybe in the intermediate grades, you may want to set up a time every day when you're going to have an office hours for your students to come in and ask questions. If you don't just have an instructional time and then an office hour time. What this does is it creates one meeting that happens every day or every week or whatever you set it up for. And that will allow you to then just give the kids one code instead of giving them a new code every day to come in. They use that same code like you guys did today. If I made this one reoccurring and had you come in every day with me at 3 o'clock, it would do that, use the same code every day. Meeting ID, you got two options here. I've not touched this one. I let it generate its own IDs. That's fine with me. I do use a meeting password because I have so many folks interested in these trainings. Therefore, I want to make sure I limit those who get the email from me and not just a link. But you can turn this feature off if you want to. That's entirely up to you. It's a personal preference. Video. This is the most important section on this page. This is where, by default, when you set up a chat on the website, it will have host video off and participant video off. Now, for today's purpose, I clicked on both of these because I want to see your smiling faces. However, if I was doing this with my students and I knew I was going to be recording, I would do this and click off on participants. What that does for me is it makes sure no matter what, they can't turn their camera on. They can't turn it on by accident. They can't hit something and something goes on. And then I've made a mistake and oops, now, you know, my kids faces are on this video and I got to stop recording and start over again or whatever it is. So entirely, you know, talk to your principal, what he, she decides they want to do here. But again, you know, if you're going to record, this needs to be off. It needs to be off and not doing that. I understand connections with kids, but ultimately we got to protect their privacy too. Audio, you've got two options here. I leave it on both because you may have some students, and I had this happen yesterday. One of my moderators, her internet went out. And so she had to call in on her phone, and you can do that too. You can call in on the telephone. That link I sent you guys this morning has all that information about calling in with that as well. So if a kid didn't have internet or wasn't at home or wasn't in a place where the power was working, they could still call on the phone and follow along. Meeting options, enable join before host. Never, 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 never. Imagine your third grade kids coming on the chat before you do and having a conversation without you there. Y'all know what they can do when you're not around. We don't want to entertain that one, so don't check this one. The next two, though, to me are very important. I did this one. I muted participants upon entry. That meant that when you guys came in, you guys could not see or speak. You couldn't turn your mic on, nothing. It's already off. Unless I enable your microphone, you guys cannot use it. Enable waiting room, another nice feature. Instead of you just coming on the chat, I put you in a waiting room. Now, normally when I have a moderator with me on early, I do that so they can come on and have a conversation with me. Some of you co-teach in your schools. Some of you have a resource person that pulls kids from your classroom. You could work together on this, and this way having the waiting room means that you can both come in, have a conversation first, and then admit the students and have a conversation with them. I don't use authenticated users, not a problem for me. Breakout rooms we'll talk about later on, but you can pre-assign them if you want to. And then this last feature here, record the meeting automatically to your local computer. We don't recommend recording to the cloud, recommend recording your local computer. I've been doing these, like I said, for 3 days now, and not one of them has been larger than a gigabyte of information. So it shouldn't be an issue storing on your computer temporarily. I would definitely record your chats if you want to share them. Maybe a kid couldn't make it or something like that. Whatever it is, at least it's there. They can go back and look at it and see what you guys covered. So that will do it automatically without you having to think about it. I'm going to hit save to save this meeting, and you'll see it'll give me my meeting reminder now. And so I've got my fake meeting number 4. I've got my calendar information I want to add to my calendar. I've got my meeting ID, my password, my link, and here's where that copy invitation comes up. And all I have to do is open this thing up, hit copy meeting invitation, and I can paste that in Edsby. I can paste that in Remind, and we'll show you later where that piece is in Edsby and where the best places to do that. If you do scroll down on this thing, though, notice there's a line down here that says find your local number. I normally delete that one out of here, and I delete it because this is not needed. We haven't found a use for it yet, but it comes with the program. So you can delete that last line down there and get rid of it. You don't need it. So that's it for this page. Notice I can still edit my meeting. I can start my meeting from this page if I want to. There are many ways you can start a meeting with Zoom, and I'll show you a couple more in just a minute. The next thing I want you to look at is settings with me. So when I click on settings, there's a lot of things here you can do by default. Notice here's that host and participant video by default. I leave them off because I'm better safe than sorry. Better safe than sorry. But I do want you to look at in-meeting advanced. And that's this piece down here about breakout rooms. This is a new feature on Zoom I've only seen in probably the last 3-4 months. And you can now set up breakout room and put kids into them. This, ladies and gentlemen, is dependent upon A, the level of your students and ability to work independently. B, if you have a co-facilitator, co-teacher, co-moderator. C, how much you trust them to do what they're going to do in a room without you on the internet. Again, there's a lot of ifs there. But if you don't enable it here, you can't use it in the chat. It's got to be enabled beforehand. Otherwise, that option won't come up for you. That's the only thing you really got to worry about on this page here, and it's something that you may want to do. The last thing on this page, and some of you may want to do this, you may want to download the actual client, the Zoom client. You get up here at Resources, Download Zoom Client. I'm going to speak now about different interfaces you can use. You can do Zoom on a computer like I am right now. You can do it on an iPad. You can do it on an iPhone, Android tablet. Just about any device that has internet, you can do a Zoom chat on. When I am hosting chats, though, I always, well, 95% of the time, sometimes I don't have my laptop or desktop with me, I always try to use the desktop. And the reason behind that is the desktop offers multitasking and allows you to do various things and have more features in the program than does the tablet version or the iPhone, Android phone version. And I'll tell you, the first time I tried to do Zoom on my iPad, I was out of town doing a Zoom chat with my class from Florida Southern. I went to leave this window, and I'm leaving this window right now, by the way, and notice I'm still moving and talking. You can see me and all that stuff. I did this on my iPad. And the second I left the window, my face got frozen like this. Okay, you can imagine where you can get stuck by leaving that window. So I saw it happen the first time. The next time I'd leave the window like this. So I made sure I wasn't making some kind of goofy face. Thank you for laughing at me. I appreciate it. I'm here all afternoon. I've been stuck in the house all day with my wife, and that's it. You know, we're kind of just like getting cabin fever. Everybody is. But I love you, honey. But you get the idea here of you want to just be careful about the things that you do when you're using various clients and things like that. If you had to use it, you could, but I want to make sure that you know, I'm going to use my computer when I'm doing this piece. So that's really all I use the website for. I'm going to get out of there and come back to you guys again in this main view. The next thing I want to show you guys is there are multiple views you can use in this program. So I'm going to show you what my view looks like. And this is the first version of my view. And notice I was doing this with my colleague Carrie earlier, and you can see that I am in what's called the gallery view. Also up here, you can see a menu that says speaker view. Now, if I were to go to speaker view, I'm going to have an issue because every time someone else comes up, it's going to show their face very large on the screen. I like the gallery view better. And when I do that, you get this gallery view, which makes it look more like you are doing an episode from the Brady Bunch. And so there you go. Here's one of the ones we recorded earlier. And you can see that we've got our Brady Bunch piece going on here. The important thing about this is to make sure it's comfortable for you. Now, I have a chat going on here. I think you guys are up to like the 60s or 70s or something like that. I had one this morning with 110. I'm going to have one tomorrow morning, almost 300. So you definitely don't want different faces popping across your screen. This screen, when you're on the speaker view, stays pretty static. What I do want to do now with this window is go over the settings at the bottom of the presenter screen. Now understand, you're looking at my screen as I recorded it. I had to take a screenshot of it, and the reason behind that is if I were to show you my actual screen, which I'm going to do now, you will see that all of my stuff for Zoom kind of disappears. All my stuff disappears. You can't see it. So it really does not make it very user-friendly for me to show you what this view looks like. So I've taken a whole ton of screenshots, and I'm sharing them the same way you might share an article or anything else you might do with your kids. And I'll give you some examples of how that works a little bit later on. So in this window down at the bottom, you can see I've got two items over here, a mute button and a stop video button. Those two only apply to me. They don't apply to anybody else in this chat. It's only me. It's only what I'm looking at for me. It's my settings, and I'll show you each one of those in turn. Next, I have an invite button. Let's say I didn't set this up ahead of time on the Zoom website, which I've been doing now every time I do a chat. I can invite people this way and get a link for them. Manage participants. By the way, that's this window over here on the right. Managing participants is a really, really important thing because it's how you can admit people from the waiting room. It's how, notice I've got controls down here to mute all of you or unmute all of you at the same time. So I can make sure I take care of that. And I've got a more option, and I'll come back to that one in a moment as well. The share screen option, we're going to spend a lot of time in there, so I'll come back to it. This is the chat feature we mentioned that toggles the chat window open and closed. As you notice in this screenshot, you can see that I also get pop-up messages when I'm in that window, so I kind of know somebody's been doing something. I mentioned recording. That's this one here. I happen to be recording. I can pause it. I can stop it. We'll talk about recording at the end. And then, of course, breakout rooms, which we'll talk about at the end as well. And I don't use the reaction piece. It's not something I really deal with for myself. So that's what my window looks like. Those are my controls in this particular screenshot. And you can see that you have a lot of powerful things you can mess with. So we're going to first start with your controls. And I'm going to go into the mute one. And I want to show you what the mute window looks like. And this time I'm going to show you what it looks like on a Windows machine, because I happen to take a screenshot of that. So this is a mute piece I did the other day, and you can see you've got all kinds of controls here for your own microphone and things like that. Some of you may want to put a microphone headset on, things like that. So far, this has worked fine for me using just my computer audio. But again, you've got complete control here of what you're going to do with your own audio. And again, it's only for you. Then you have a video piece. And when you pull up the video piece, you will see one of two things. You might see this one here. And notice this is the one on my Mac. And so I've got a choice of my camera, a virtual background, which I'll show you in just a moment, and video settings. If I go to the Windows version of it, it looks just a little bit different, but you pretty much have the same couple things that are on there. You got the camera you're using, your video settings, and then a virtual background. There is a touch-up feature on there for anybody who wants to touch themselves up. I did it. It made me look worse. Y'all can laugh. There you go. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll be playing here all afternoon. So I'm going to show you a virtual background for me. And let's see. I'm going to go to, I'm going to the Cliff some more. There we go. I'm on the Cliff some more now, as you guys can see. This is a virtual background. I'm going to show you what this looks like when you pull up your own window. And so I'm going to screen share with you now. And this is my window for virtual background. Now, whether or not you have this option is dependent upon three things. Number one, do you have the latest version of the Zoom software installed on your computer? If you don't, you won't have the virtual background. Number two, is your computer fast enough to handle that piece? My laptop cannot handle it. My desktop can, hence I'm doing all these chats on my desktop, plus the monitor is so much bigger and I have plenty of room. Number three, are you sitting in a room where the background can blend out easily? Right now I am, because the wall behind me is a very, very pale green, and I have blinds behind me, so it's fading out very easily. But I had somebody on this morning, the poor thing, had a background, wearing the same color shirt, and she disappeared and her head was floating around, bobbing around like that. So just look at it before you actually go on with students and be careful. You can see sometimes I move and my hands disappear a little bit. If I bring my cup up like this, I disappear a little bit. So, you want to be careful about that piece. Now down here in my screen, you can see I've got several different backgrounds. Most of them are pictures I've taken. There's a plus sign right here. You just press the plus sign and you can add a photo. You can say one from Google to your desktop, add a photo, put in your background. I see Michelle Gaskins is at the San Francisco Bay Bridge. So you've got that thing, that kind of stuff is optional for you. And it gives you something different to look at instead of being stuck in the room all day. I feel like I'm at the Cliff some more again. So that is the virtual background. And again, a neat feature, just something to play around with and have fun with, and something you can do to kind of, make your time more fun. So a few other features I want you to see is the waiting room. So you guys were stuck in a waiting room this afternoon before I brought you on. And this is what that room looks like for me from my view. Notice on here, I've got 32 people in my waiting room, and my colleague Barb and I were on automatically together. You'll also notice that Barb has a red line through her camera, which means her camera was turned off. Right now, you guys all have a red line through your microphones because your microphones are all turned off. Okay. Up here at the top, I can admit somebody individually. I can message you guys, which is what I did earlier. Did you get the message when I sent it out? We're going to start in a few minutes. I'm going to let you in a few minutes. And then I could admit you all at the same time instead of having to keep on admit, 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 and doing that again and again and again. That could be quite annoying. This is also where I have the mute all and unmute all feature. And this is in my Manage Participants window. I click on the Manage Participants icon at the bottom of my screen, and this is what I get. What's neat about it is when I click on that More Options, this is that same window, but I clicked on the More Options. I want you guys to see this one really quick because this is very important. This determines how your people go in. So notice here, I have muted all on entry. That meant everybody came in muted. Now remember, I set it up in my chat ahead of time, but I can check it here and make sure you guys don't come in with a microphone. If you're gonna bring in 20 students, 30 students, 40 students, you might wanna have them muted when they come in, okay? Second, allow participants unmute themselves. I have unchecked that box. We had this happen on one of our other webinars this morning where I was watching it. I wasn't participating, I was just watching, and somebody got unmuted and had an inappropriate comment. They didn't realize they were unmuted, didn't realize they were saying it, and probably went and hit mute and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. So just to be safe. Allow participants to rename themselves. I've done that for you guys. I'm gonna show you how to do that in a moment, but I might uncheck this for students. I can imagine my 8th grade kids or even my 5th graders from last year, James, making themselves Doofus or some other name like that just to be funny. I wanna see their real name and see who they are. Plus, I might be recording it. I could lock the meeting if I want. And this last one here, remember this is the waiting room we set up. So once I hit this admit all up here, I come and uncheck this box, and that way nobody else gets stuck in the waiting room. They just come in automatically after that point. So as long as this is checked, they go in the waiting room. And I had a chat yesterday where I left 10 people in the waiting room for 10 minutes. I forgot they were in there. I was just so busy going and talking about the features, I felt bad. I admitted them and let them go. Luckily, I was recording things, you know, so we had things going in the right direction. So that's that piece. The next one I want to show you guys is the actual chat room. And I'm going to show you it 2 different ways. The first way I'm going to show you is the options I see on my Mac. And then I'm going to show you the options I see on a Windows machine. So first we're going to look at the Mac window. Notice down here at the bottom, I have a to button, and I can click this button and I can select everyone. When you guys were in the waiting room, I can select waiting room, and I can also privately message anybody in the chat. By default, sometimes you get a chat where it's set up that way, and that's this bottom one over here. I click these 3 dots, and this bottom one, everybody publicly and privately, you definitely do not want that setting on. If you have that setting on, it means your students can private message each other, and who knows what they're going to say. So I definitely would pick the everyone publicly. What everyone publicly means is they can message you privately, and you can message them privately, and they can message the whole group. So there's no privacy for them outside of you, meaning you can see everything they're doing. There's also, they can only message you or no one at all. I find the chat feature to be very useful, and here it is again in the Windows version. So again, same thing, same kind of little menu piece down here, just looks a little bit different because it's on Windows versus a Mac. It's aesthetic pieces. But a very powerful feature for you because just like today, I have students asking questions over on the side. That's you guys. If I was doing it with students, I might have them typing in questions, especially my intermediate kids. My primary kids, I'll get to another method in a moment, you can use with them as a possibility. So that is the chat window. Let me close those and make sure we go through all of our features together. I talked about the invitation, and we're gonna get to breakout room in a minute. I talked about the participant windows with you. Sorry, folks, just going through my checklist to make sure I don't miss anything. I did virtual background, did waiting room. Oh, sharing. Let's talk about sharing. You're going to want to share documents with your kids. Such a powerful feature. So when you do sharing, you will see one of 2 windows. you will see a window looking like this, and this is my Mac version of it. And notice I can share anything that I have open. Anything I have open. Now I can share things that are closed too, but I'm going to tell you this. I have one folder with every screenshot in it waiting to go. And that way when it comes time, I can open that screenshot and show you guys what I want to show you. I do it that way because otherwise I might be fumbling around and searching, and then I take up too much of your time. So this is sharing windows, what it looks like. I can pick my desktop. Now I'm on a computer with 2 monitors, so I can show either one. A virtual whiteboard we'll go over in a minute. If you have a connected device, there are ways to connect an Elmo or an iPhone, iPad, if you want to use like a document camera type thing. And again, I can share any window I have open. Now this is the version it looks like when I'm looking at Windows. And again, just aesthetically different, but you can see the screen, the whiteboard, my iPhone, iPad, and I only had one window open in my Windows session here, and that was Google, because I downloaded the client to use on my Windows partition. But again, the same thing here, I can share anything with my students. Now, there are many share settings. There are many share settings. By default, this program comes on and allows you to share, them to share, but only you can interrupt them. They can't interrupt each other. They can't interrupt you. So none of you have taken a moment yet to go ahead and share anything, and that's good. You haven't tried that piece. We'll do that in just a minute. But if I'm sharing, none of you can do anything. If you're sharing, I can interrupt you, but other participants cannot interrupt you. So I'm going to show you now the virtual whiteboard, which is probably one of the most useful features in this program. I love this feature because it allows me to do many things, such as typing a problem in for students to solve. I can draw an answer on here. I can add stickers. Good job, Scott. Way to go. You got the right answer. Now, the best feature, and somebody already figured this out, is you all can write on this whiteboard as well. I have given you permission. That's by default. The way you're going to find that is if you go up near the top of your screen with your mouse, you'll see a hovering window for this program. You'll see a button that says more options, or view options, and you'll see a button that says annotate. That will give you the floating window control so you can start writing things in here, and you can see a whole bunch of you are doing that right now. There are 2 really neat features about this from the host perspective. Number 1, I can close it at any time. Number 2, when I reshare it, if I haven't erased it, everything we did before is still on there. Now in this chat, if I go to a new chat, it's gone. But in this chat, it stays on there. I also, in my floating window, have a save feature. So I can save this item, and then I can clear it off for you guys to start over again. And then we can do some more and do some more work together. Now, the beauty of the annotate feature is I could put an article up here. And here's where, for many of you, we've been practicing writing with the kids. Obviously, the writing assessment's not happening now. But we've been practicing writing forever because I've been doing it at James with the kids too. And, you know, you have an article up there and you're still having kids work on finding evidence and coding evidence. You could put an article up here. No, you can't tell who writes each piece unless they use the arrow, and that's the problem. That's the only problem with this piece right here. But you have limits. You can limit people from doing things. So, for example, I can limit who can and cannot write on here. But getting back to my article example, you put an article up there as shared. You show the students how to annotate the first paragraph, and then you have a student do the second one, another student do the third one, and then you all talk about it and critique it as opposed to you doing all the work and showing them the things that you are doing. That's the only flaw in this piece. There's no knowing who did it, and you can change your share options if you want to in that piece. But again, I can also clear this off, and there it goes, and now we start fresh again. So a really, really powerful feature in this program. And I'm going to close out of that real quick. Now, what I'm going to do before I go on to my last 2 pieces with you, I'm going to give you all a chance, whoever grabs it first, to go ahead and share something from your computer with us. Click on that share button. Circe, it's the share button at the bottom, and there'll be a whiteboard. Ooh, baseball. Yeah, that's not happening right now. I play my own baseball game in the back. All right, if you would unshare whoever shared that for us, let somebody else have a chance. Thank you very much. Next. We'll see who's first. Oh, there we go. Oh, we got a new whiteboard. Hooray. And by the way, anybody can do the whiteboard. Richmond. Is that my son or my wife?
Your son.
Oh, okay. My son did come on the board. Okay, gotcha. All right, Richmond, get out of there. Anybody else? Yes, resident millennial. All right. Oh, yep. There we go. We've got a book we're going to read. Ben Franklin's In My Bathroom. I love it. I love it. All right. Go ahead and unshare if you would, please. So that's a great feature. And I can also, by the way, I have advanced share. Remember, every button here has like an arrow next to it. So I have a button next to mine. I have advanced sharing features. And now I can turn off your ability to share. And you guys can't share anything with me anymore. The next feature we're going to talk about is students raising their hands. So every student has a chance to raise their virtual hand in here. With a group like you guys where I have 4 pages of people to look at, I'm not going to be able to see who raises their hand. I'm going to have to do things differently. But if you click on where it says participants in the bottom of your window, you'll get an option to raise your hand virtually. It's a little blue hand and it goes up on your screen. And when you do that, this is what I see in my window. And you can see this person raise their hand, and I have an option to lower their hand. So I'm going to go ahead and see who raised their hand on my screen. Okay, Barrio C, I'm going to lower your hand. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Not bad. Thanks for playing. All right, now Renee, I'm going to lower your hand. Hi, Renee, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Not too bad. Thanks for playing. And so it's a neat way for me to then go in and see somebody has raise their hand. I can lower their hand. I can say, okay, what is your question? Go ahead and say your question, and then I can mute them back. So those are kind of a neat feature for you to have one kid talking at a time, as opposed to having everybody come on at one time and all ask tons of questions. So that's another really cool feature you can use in this piece. Other students cannot see whose hand is raised. No, they don't see that. They only see their own virtual hand. I saw that pop up. Will that be only if video? No, video doesn't matter at all. If it's, you have a box, like Cheryl Farrell is not there, and I can still see her hand raised if she did it. You can also, by the way, rename yourself. You can rename yourself. If you hover your mouse over your picture, you'll see 3 dots appear on the right-hand side. Click on that, and you can go to rename and rename yourself. And Tiffany, I'm going to take care of yours for you to show you that as moderator, I can actually do it myself as well and rename anybody I want in this piece. There is a feature when you have students come in where you can allow them to not rename themselves, and you can rename them for them, like I just did for Melovich. I took care of her. Really important, again, you know your students. I don't know your students, but I know some of the kids I taught both in middle school and elementary school would put weird names up there all the time, and I don't want them to do that. I like to go Gators. Thank you very much. Okay, that's the second and last feature. The last feature I want to show you guys before we stop recording and I do question and answer is the breakout room feature. I mentioned this earlier as an opportunity for you to put kids into rooms individually. Now, when I go into the breakout room, what I see is this. I get a window. Give me 1 second. I'm going to load up my windows. So I am ready to go. I get a window looking like this. This thing pops up in my screen, breakout rooms. At the time, I had 90 people. It lets me figure out how many rooms I want, and I can automatically put them in. Now, for 90 people, I'm putting you guys automatically in rooms. But if I had a class of 20 kids, I might do it manually and say Johnny, Joni, Janie, Jimmy, I'm sorry, I got a J thing going on because my son's name is Jonathan. And it tells you how many people are going into a room, and I create breakout rooms. So that's a really cool feature, and I'm going to show you that by putting you guys into breakout rooms now. When you get into your breakout room, you will realize 2 things. Number one, you can unmute yourself now and have a conversation. Number 2, you can share stuff such as the virtual whiteboard and documents to have a discussion. So I'm going to put you guys into breakout rooms, then I'll pull you back. I'll show you how I pulled you back afterwards. I will pop into a few breakout rooms, but just have a conversation about how you might use some of these features. And by the way, I saw a couple of great messages come up saying, hey, can we do a Zoom chat together after this is over? Yes, great idea. I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to put you guys into breakout rooms now, and here you go. Hello, breakout room 1.
Hey.
Hello, breakout room.
How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I see you figured out how to unmute yourselves. That's fantastic.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to go visit elsewhere. I'll be back.
Okay.
Hello, breakout room 2.
Hi.
Oh, I
Hi.
found Paula. Gotcha. Carry on. I'm going somewhere else.
Let's turn this up.
Hello, breakout room 3.
Hi, we're here.
Yep, as you see, I can come into any room I want and come see you. The only problem with
Great.
this is obviously only one facilitator. You can't have more than one facilitator, so I'm the only one who can do this. Yep. All right, I'm going to go somewhere else. You guys have a nice conversation.
Okay.
Popping around. Looks like he just popped in just now.
Hi,
Hi.
I found my son.
Well, you found two.
Look
my
what I
guys.
found.
Oh, gosh. Monster. Monster. That's all it is. I got to keep awake. This is my 4th chat today.
That was just within reaching distance. It really wasn't. It was just a prop.
All right, I'm going one more room and I'll pull you guys back.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see it. Yes, I can. Yep. Hi, guys.
Hi.
How are y'all?
Hi.
All right, I'm going to pull you guys back here in a moment.
Okay.
So as you guys all come back, you can see that I was able to pop in and out of every room. I can monitor each room with this window here. This is my breakout room window. Just clicking that breakout button at the bottom of my page. And notice I can join any room. I was in room 3 at this time. I can leave that room, join another room. I can close all rooms and make you guys come back. So it's fully featured, but, and this is the big strong but, you cannot monitor what you are not in. So I want you to think about that piece. Now, if I was co-teaching, say with my son, and we were going to split off kids, he was going to take the 5 kids who really need help in one room. I take the 25 in another room. That's fine. That's not an issue because you have a teacher in each room. But you know your kids best. You know the needs of your students best. You know how you can do things best. But if you want everybody on one chat at one time and break them off for 2 minutes and bring them back, it's a way to kind of make that happen. And allow them that time to chat individually, because ultimately right now, none of you can unmute your microphones without me doing it. But the second you guys went in those chat rooms, you were able to unmute your microphones right away and have a conversation. So there's another feature of this program that allows you flexibility in what you're doing, and things you can do to work with kids. I'm at the end of what I wanted to really cover with you. I'm going to stop my recording now and